Good evening. Welcome to our program, Women to Women. I'm Carol Paz, your hostess for tonight, and we have a very special lady. But first, before we get to Tricia, let's thank our sponsors. I'd like to thank Villa Basque Deli Cafe, home of Pete's famous Basque chorizo, as well as Carpa Nevada LLC, importer of fine Portuguese olive oils, balsamic vinegar, and international health teas. So with that, let's turn to Tricia Lincoln. And Tricia, I'd like to welcome you very much to our program tonight.
Pleased to be here.
It's wonderful to have you.
Thank you.
Tricia, you have a long-time business, both your husband and yourself here in Carson City. Sure. And we're going to talk about that. But first, we'd like to find out a little bit about you as a person. One of the main goals of Women to Women is to bring ourselves as neighbors together in a brand new way. Sometimes we come into the stores, sometimes we see on the street, but that's getting to be less and less of a familiar scenario. Mm-hmm. But we always want customers in stores. However, I think it's a great thing that a program can introduce business people, people who are making a difference here in Northern Nevada, not only to one another, but to the entire public. So our faces are out there, and we need your faces to help us put this program together. So, Tricia, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up?
Oh, boy.
Are you native Nevadan?
I am not. I am from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm of the Dutch community there. I'm 100% Dutch blood.
Tulips.
Well, that's Holland and Zealand, but that's where I'm from. And I graduated high school there and did some college there, and I left there mostly to find good skiing elsewhere. Okay. I kind of ran away from home for skiing.
Yeah, Michigan has a lot of snow quite often, but not the mountains or
Correct.
the big hills. That's
Correct.
Right.
They have little hills. So we learned to ski very young. I was just 11 when I learned to ski, and I loved it. Mm-hmm. And my brother as well. And so after my father passed away, I left.
And I'm from that northwestern section of Ohio.
Oh, so a little bit further south. You would go into Michigan to ski.
No, we went into Michigan for summer vacations. Uh-huh. And the aroma of pine trees as you get further and further north on those major highways was just something that as a kid just seduced me. Okay, I loved Michigan.
Well, that, and I think sometimes driving along the lake shore of Lake Michigan and the overhang, you see pictures in magazines of just deciduous trees in the fall, and Michigan's like that. It's very, very beautiful.
It
place.
Is. It's a beautiful
Although
state.
I didn't think so when I wanted to leave. So
our perspective can change with age.
Yes, it absolutely can.
So after leaving Michigan, did you and your family leave together, or did you take off on your own?
Yeah, no, my father passed away when I was 21, and my mother wasn't in our lives at that time, and so I turned over a family responsibility to my 2-year younger brother, he and I are very close to this day, and I moved to Gunnison, Colorado to ski and find my way there. I just didn't enjoy school anymore there, and I just wanted to be gone from there.
So for a period of time, after you left high school, education was not a part of the scene in terms of formal education?
No, I went to junior college, and I went to Grand Valley State College at the time. It's now a state university in Michigan. I attended there for a while.
What were those interests at that time?
Well, I learned to sew when I was 6 years old, and I loved to sew, and I also loved colors. I always got to pick the color of the walls in my room, and most of the other rooms in the house after a while. I wanted to do something with that when I went to register for my classes at this school, and they said, well, the only thing we have is art, and there's some sewing. For sewing you could do theatrical costume design. Never want to be on a stage ever, but I've done theatrical costume design, and actually at one point in the early 80s I did some work with proscenium players in that regard.
And coming from the Midwest, the both of us, sometimes there is that opportunity. I look upon it as an opportunity now that other parts of the country don't, perhaps the South some, but sewing was not necessarily a big thing, but it was incorporated into our high school studies if you chose. It was incorporated into 4-H activities if you chose. And so that ability that you have that was going to really establish itself later was pushing forth, poking up, okay.
Well, my mother was professionally a seamstress.
Oh, nice.
But before my older sister was born, and so she passed that along to me.
Mm-hmm.
But mostly because I would complain about the clothes that she made for me, even at a young age. And so finally she said, that's it. You're going to learn to do it yourself. And
what was wrong with Mom's design?
They were old-fashioned.
And this came along about at what age?
Well, I actually got my first sewing machine when I was just before I turned 7. I was a little over, it was Christmas, and I was 6, and I got a little, operating toy machine. Yes. And then what she did was she gave me doll clothes to go on my favorite big size doll, and she left a sleeve off, or she left the hem off, or she left the buttons off, and that's how she taught me to sew.
She slowly but surely brought you into it.
Yes, but by the time I was 11...
That was a good teacher, by the way.
Well, she just didn't want to hear me whine about it anymore. By the time I was 11 years old, I went to a class. She wanted to take a tailoring class at the Y in the summer, and so she took me along and tried to register me to take the tailoring class. They said, no, she should be in a class with girls her own age. So she signed me up for beginning sewing, and I went with my pattern and my fabric as instructed, and I sat twiddling my thumbs while the instructor told them how to lay out the pattern and everything, and I wore the dress the next week to the class and went to tailoring with my mother. Okay. Plain and simple.
And you know what you're revealing to us, Tricia, is a real determination, a focus that you have, which was there when you were a little girl.
I think I was headstrong, is what I think it was called.
Headstrong, yes, but also a confidence in what you wanted to do. And that's very important to notice that in a child, as well as sewing is a precision activity in many respects. The measurements, the cutting, Absolutely. The type of stitching, and the design that you really want to have turn out can sometimes be up here, and you have to alter a pattern to get that.
Absolutely. I have another story about that. A roommate that I had at one time, her boyfriend went with us to a fabric store, and we picked out our patterns and we picked out our fabrics, and he could not visualize this fabric becoming that thing. He was just astounded that both of us, because we were both seamstresses, could picture this
what's going to look like
pattern picture in that whatever we picked out. It's a very visual art as well as technical, and I think that serves me well.
It serves you and has served you beautifully.
Absolutely.
So let's move you from Gunnison, which I happened to stay overnight a couple of nights in as a kid on a Western trip. So I know where that is, and we loved it. From Colorado, where did you journey?
Well, I met my ex-husband there, and we ended up in where his parents lived in Bakersfield, California, for a couple of years. I made a concession to that, and I ended up here in 1979. Because I came with some friends skiing at Heavenly, and I looked down. It was April, and it was nice and green in the valley, and the skiing was pretty good, still amazing. And I borrowed my friend's car one day when they were skiing, and I came down and just checked out the area and went back to Bakersfield and said to my ex, well, I am moving to Carson City, Nevada, and I'd love for you to join me, but if you don't, I'm moving anyway. He was helping his parents close down their foundry that they owned there. And so it was legitimate, and we all ended up here, including his parents, after that.
Okay. Now, had children arrived by this stage of your life?
I don't have any children.
Oh, you don't have any children?
I made a choice at a young age not to have them, and there's a family dynamic there that I was raised with an older sister that was born with umbilical cord wrapped around her neck. The whole third trimester is the suspicion. And so I've always been very comfortable around special needs people, and actually did team teach in a classroom for a while in special ed. But she was severely mentally retarded. She passed away a couple of years ago. Nobody expected her to live to be into her teens, and she was, but she was 60 when she died.
And a special gift to the family.
Well, it was a challenge to the family. That's what I really, I think of it as, I didn't have an older sister, I didn't ever have an older sister. normally. So
And
sad.
sometimes those kinds of challenges, Tricia, I don't know whether you would agree with me or not, but they tend to bring either out the worst in us or the best in us as family.
Yes.
And they can be, that's why I said, in so many circumstances, they teach us patience, attention, skills that we might not otherwise have developed. And they bring an awareness of gratefulness and appreciation in many ways.
Absolutely, no question about that.
Yes.
There's many other family dynamics that occur in that, but no question that there's an appreciation for all the gifts that God has given me and the challenges that have made me what I am. So that's one of them.
All right, so you were how old when you arrived here in Carson City?
Oh, do I have to say? I already said when I came.
1979. Right?
Yes.
Okay. So relatively young. And what do you think you brought with you to Carson City that either you learned along the way, you developed along the way, but Carson seemed to have caught your attention, not just for the skiing and the beautiful environment, but probably deep down inside you, there was an awareness and acknowledgement that this place had the possibility for roots.
I absolutely felt like home immediately, and I've never looked back from that. It has been my home all this time, and I've always thought of it that way. We did a little stint living in Dayton for a while, but still I consider that this area. And
sometimes it takes that journey from one place to the next to realize, you know what, this place is home.
Yes.
I can identify here for whatever the reasons are.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be the place where you were born.
No, it's where you make it your home.
Yes, yes. And it can be a place that you've been at as a child with good memories. It can be at a place where there is still family there to an extent, but you recognize it. And the fact that you did is something that other people often can't say.
I don't know.
They miss that place. There's a lot to be said for small towns.
Absolutely. I like to joke, though, that I'm most comfortable living on Highway 50 towns because Gunnison is on Highway 50 and here is Highway 50. And I now have a niece who lives in Gunnison, Colorado. So I joke with her.
Okay, so when you arrived here in Carson City in 1979, was the place quite a bit different than it is today?
Oh, my goodness, yes. Very much so.
Because I kind of look at it as a small, very small city.
Well, it was a town then.
But it was a town then, that's
yes.
right. And where you came from in Michigan, was it a lot different than Michigan in terms of size and population?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Grand Rapids is a huge city. It's
Metropolis,
over a
yes.
million people metropolitan area.
Yes.
I have to say I ran away from there and I didn't look back for a very long time, but my brother is still there, and when I go visit, it's an enjoyable time. And I have memories. I learned to drive there. My whole early upbringing was there. I left there when I was 23, 24. And so that was home, and now this is home, and it's vastly different. And I like this home because it's the one I got to choose. It's not the one that my parents chose.
All right. Again, that independence is really perking its head right up in you. Okay, that assertion is. And I have to share with the audience tonight that before we taped this show, I knew I was working with an interior designer, but I didn't realize how precise Miss Tricia can be. And before we went on the set, everything had to meet with her inspection. And we're going to find out why she's so successful with that determination when we come back for the second half. Don't go away.
Celebrate your patriotic spirit this summer with the Carson Nugget $1 million Red, White, and Blue Summer Giveaway. We are giving away scooters all summer, and the whole family can join in for outdoor barbecues. Come in today for your share of $1 million in cash, free play, and scooters.
Hi, I'm Stephen Lincoln with CarsonCityHomes.com, Carson City's original online real estate resource.
At CarsonCityHomes.com, you get effective and easy-to-use tools to help you select your next home today. With our easy-to-use website, you can search listings throughout Northern Nevada and narrow the results by selecting every facet, quirk, and quality you desire. Visit CarsonCityHomes.com.
Apex SCF provides cutting-edge, hands-on training that effectively addresses today's threats of violence.
The Apex Stay Alive course teaches proven methods for personal protection and attack countermeasures that can be applied in any environment. In your home, at the workplace, or on campus, Apex will teach you the necessary skills to stay alive, including how to recognize and react to an active shooter scenario.
If you knew you had to fight for your life tomorrow, would you train today? Contact us now to sign up for a class in your region.
Celebrate your patriotic spirit this summer with the Carson Nugget $1 Million Red, White, and Blue Summer Giveaway. We are giving away scooters all summer, and the whole family can join in for outdoor barbecues. Come in today for your share of $1 million in cash, free play, and scooters.
Welcome back to the second half of our program, Women to Women. We're with Tricia Lincoln, and we're going to turn to Tricia in just a few moments. But in the meantime, I'd like to say thank you so much to carsonnow.org, which is the place to go here in Carson City on the internet for the latest breaking news here in this city, carsonnow.org. And remember, Apex Security consulting firm. They are the latest in the new methods for training and protecting, whether it's corporate or personal safety. They are among the best. We'd also like to thank the Nevada Appeal and the Record Courier because they always encourage us to shop locally, support those small businesses here in Carson City, let them know that you are here for them. So let's turn back to Tricia right now. Tricia,
Yes.
welcome again.
Thank you.
You have a flair about you, okay, that just speaks naturally, and I love that. I love that. And you have indirectly, you've shared with the audience, you're assertive. You have a definite sense of design and color, as you demonstrated with our background, okay? And at the same time, you also carry a very famous last name.
Yeah.
Are you in any way connected to the famous Abraham Lincoln?
Well, yes. My husband's family has done some extensive research, and 3 brothers moved to Hingham, Massachusetts in 1637. The youngest brother, Samuel Lincoln, was 15 at the time,
Okay.
and he is the ancestor that our family traces back to, as well as Abraham Lincoln, the president's family. But I have another little side note to that. I
Okay.
have a nephew named Abraham Lincoln, so yes, I'm related.
Oh, that is wonderful. And you know, to take the time, many of us have well-known last names, but we don't take the time to make any connections. Are there connections? And your family has. And that's a rich tapestry that you can pass on and share and enjoy and always be a part of.
I think it's easy when the name is a famous name. It's much more difficult for unknown names. I have a distant cousin on my own side of the family who is working hard on the genealogy and has actually published one book and is working on her second for my maiden name, which should not be mentioned, and it's very difficult for her. It's much simpler because of having the connection to a famous individual in this country.
I can believe that, but you may be in for a surprise when she finally finishes all of her research on your as yet unexplained last name, maiden name, okay? There may be some real surprises and real treasures, nuggets of treasure there for you.
Oh,
We'll let her work on that.
I'll let her. I'll ask her one day, I suppose.
Okay, so Tricia, bring us up to date then. You are married to Stephen Lincoln, who is a successful real estate agent here in the Carson City, Northern Nevada area, and yet you have your own business.
Yes.
Now, how did that come about? How did you become an interior designer? When did all of this plan out mentally in your head, and then you physically made this, was it a dream?
Yes, and it was not unexpected by my family. I remember one aunt and uncle who refused to allow me to be in a room by myself because they were afraid I would drop the lamps when I was moving them around. I have always kind of had a knack for spatial arrangement.
That's a gift. That's a gift.
So,
And when you walk into a room, you probably, even as a child, as you're indicating, you had a sense of where things should be in a room. You had a sense of light, a placement, of size, and an eye for design. That's neat. That's neat. Okay.
I think it might have something to do with my heritage. The Dutch are known as furniture makers, and that's what the part of my family that settled in Western Michigan and Holland, Zealand, were craftsmen,
Yes.
furniture
Yes.
makers and carpenters, and so
Established furniture makers in
Correct.
Europe.
Well,
and,
in Grand
treasured.
Rapids, Michigan was considered the furniture capital of the world up until the early 70s when
North Carolina, yes, moved in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I can assure you that many of my grandparents' pieces of furniture came from Grand Rapids, okay? And they have been outstanding in quality.
I have one treasured piece still as well, yes.
Okay, so tell us, how did this business of yours then, when did it develop? When did it actually open for business?
Well, I started my own business in 1990.
All right.
I had been working for several other design firms in the area before then, mostly not as a designer so much, but as what's known as an expediter, which would be placing orders, doing the detail kinds of things, and also in sales at one point, the design aspect. And
so that was a good base that you were forming
yes,
there. Yes,
and again, the detail orientation was something I already had. I love what I do, and I really can't imagine anything else. So that, 23 years now has just flown by.
When you like what you do, it does. It really does.
Absolutely.
What are some of the areas here in Carson City that have that touch of Tricia Lincoln?
Oh my. I have worked in every area of Carson City, and I believe that everyone can benefit from good design.
Oh yes, I agree.
Color has an amazing impact on everybody. Now,
Emotionally,
and the environment in which they work, the color of the environment in which they work can have a positive or a negative effect on their productivity and their general attitude and their well-being.
So where are some of the spots we could look here in Northern Nevada for a Tricia touch?
Well, most recently, I've been doing a lot of work for the Nugget.
The Carson Nugget.
The Carson Nugget. There's been a complete redesign of their banquet rooms, and just recently finished the accessorizing and furnishing of the lobby area, or what Star Anderson likes to call the foyer. Okay. So I've just finished that now, and I'm hopeful that the budget will be there soon to finish artwork, etc., in the banquet rooms themselves. But I think most people in Carson are happy to see that black and gold decor and red go away.
Okay, this is kind of a question for me that arose in your discussion just now. You are in a highly historical place in Nevada. So when you talk about a new design for the interior or the exterior of a place, do you take history and the architecture of that history into mind at all? Does that ever play an important role, or any role?
Absolutely. I think, especially in public spaces, which I am able to do because I have the correct licensing, I think you need to definitely take that into account. And that was part of the design discussions with the powers that be at the Nugget when I started planning that work. However, you have to take into account in public spaces that the furniture has to be durable enough. It can't be old antique furniture. It's not going to hold up well. And also, the Nugget also likes to shop locally, and so I did that for the most part with all the products that are there.
Good, I'm glad to hear that. Yes.
Oh, absolutely. If it's a client's home, I'm definitely working for them, and I interview them to determine the type of the style they like, the needs that they have in terms of the furnishings,
so there are a lot of
components.
Usage, and
absolutely
go into the decision-making process. And one of them is the area where you are creating the new design for.
Right.
Okay.
Now, my home is very contemporary, so I don't have anything historic, except for that piece of Grand Rapids furniture in it.
Okay, and that's your personal choice. You
Correct.
like the contemporary look, a very clean, wide-swept earthy tones quite often?
Oh, no, I'd
No.
say my favorite, I think of red as a neutral. So
Really? Okay.
I think that's
And I love the color red. I love it.
gives you a clue about my home.
Well, as long as it doesn't look like a blast furnace, okay? It's not that hot red. So let me ask you this question, Tricia. As a businesswoman in this community, there are other women out there who are thinking, I too like color, I like design, I like to make decisions about that. But at the same time, it's a huge responsibility to say, I am going to create a business.
Yes,
I
it
am going
is.
to open a store here in Carson City. What are some of the considerations that our listeners need to take into account if that seed is beginning to germinate in their mind about the possibility of becoming a business force here in Carson?
Well, in every industry has different rules. There is state licensing in my industry for working in anything other than a residential project.
Okay.
So
We're talking public versus private.
we're talking commercial work or hospitality or healthcare
versus residential.
versus residential,
Okay.
correct. And then there's, you have to have liability insurance, and you have to have a business license from the city, from any municipality in which you work. And that's for any work. And,
Right.
If you have a storefront, which I no longer do, you have to have the upkeep, and there's that monthly ding, so to speak, that pay the rent.
Right.
So it's a big responsibility. I think that those are important. Having that licensing, having that those certificates underneath your belt is important to show credibility,
Right.
To
Right.
your clients.
Right. And perhaps you're telling us, you're sharing with us that you did build a base before you actually went into business for yourself. You were working for other people
Yes.
in an area of detail, an area of good listening skills as to what the customer is asking for, and to be able to deliver that.
Correct.
To bring all those components together is an organizational skill, as well as a not only public service, but it bespeaks of someone who is wanting to get the job done and do it properly. Now, when you became your own business owner, are you the boss? Do you share that responsibility with anybody else?
I'm the boss. I am a one-woman shop, so to speak.
Okay.
I have a bookkeeper, and I have an assistant who helps keep my studio somewhat organized. And I say somewhat because I strongly believe that creative minds are less than...
It's a working place.
The creative minds are rarely tidy is one of my favorite sayings.
Oh, okay. Creative minds are really tidy.
Are rarely tidy.
Rarely tidy. Okay. Oh, yeah. Any space that I am going to be using is filled with different ideas all over the room. And I can't keep those ideas just stacked in a pile. They've got to be flowing over into one another. Is that anywhere near you?
Yeah, and that's what my assistant Trish does, and that's interesting in it. But my assistant Trish has to keep things from interfering with other things. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what? You've enlightened us a lot, Tricia, on the background that you have, the journeys, so to speak, that you've taken that have opened your eyes and your heart up to new areas of the country to put down roots in. And I think that that's an important signal for all of us, is be open to opportunities when they present themselves to you. Be open, be open. I want to say thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Really, that's it.
That's it, okay. We really enjoyed having you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I thought I'd be nervous, but you made it
Beautiful,
very comfortable.
beautiful. And we want to say thank you to all of you who joined us this evening. We'll see you next week with a very special guest. In the meantime, take care, have a good evening, good night.